Hi, my name is Louise Larson, and I run August Consulting, and I help families on the road to college. This is my June webinar for June of 2025. Um, so I was getting all prepared to go out to my office and record this, and I realized, wait a minute, nobody's home. Why am I going out when I could just do it here in the peace and quiet of my own home? So here I am. Um, So I have my usual news and notes, and then I'm going to talk about writing. It is June. We are absolutely, you know, the writing season is approaching, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And so I'll talk about what's gone on in the past month or so in the college world that might be of interest to families with high school age students. So I thought this was interesting, and I've heard this more than once, but college admissions people, the people making the decisions, are often upset and disappointed when they can't take certain kids. When they don't look forward to turning kids down. They're not throwing your application into a garbage can. They're often torn like, wow, this kid's going to be great somewhere. I can't take him for one reason or another. So I thought that was a comforting piece when you send your application out and you don't know, it's probably going to be well received, even if it isn't admitted. Um, Other little piece of news, U.S. News and World Report rankings started in 1983. In 1987, a man named Robert Morse took over and has manned the helm ever since, even after the magazine became defunct. He is retiring. So that is a little bit of news. There was a piece, I think it was in Town and Country, but the 15 most expensive colleges. And, I just think that's silly. I mean, private colleges across the board are expensive, and whether they're 87,000 or 92,000 or even more potentially, I mean, they're expensive. So I think having, citing the 15 most expensive is sort of silly. Another little interesting piece of an interesting number that I saw was at the Division 3 athletic level. Um, Often a student body could be comprised of 25% of athletes. So that's a pretty high percentage of a D3 campuses tend to be a little smaller. High concentration of athletes. The South continues to see growth in attendance. Everywhere else is up 2%. The South is up 4%. Now that's for a couple reasons. First of all, people like that warmer climate. And people also, those schools tend to be a little bit more affordable, especially if they're public, than their counterparts, especially in the Northeast. The other thing I thought I heard was I thought gave good context and clarity for families was from Sarah Riggs, who's on the admissions team at Georgia Tech. And she said, once you are deemed admissible at a selective school, you should be encouraged. Holistic admissions means that once you are assessed, once it is assessed that you are academically competitive and prepared, then they look at everything else. And ultimately, that means that the decision is about the institutional priorities of the school, not about the student. Highly selective admission is not personal. So if you are academically prepared and admissible and competitive, then they're going to look at everything else and see where you fit into their class. Um, will more schools require scores? Yes. Cooper Union, to their credit, announced in late May that they will be requiring scores for the fall of 2026 applicants. Now that's nice. That gives kids a full, plenty of time to get organized if you're envisioning applying to Cooper Union and you're the class of, I guess, applying in the fall of 26 or the class of 27. They're giving kids lots of time. I don't think it is impossible that we could see schools come out right now. I mean, it's June 1st. I think we could have schools come out right now in the next couple of weeks and say, we're going to require scores in the next cycle. It's not impossible. I've been kind of waiting. So far this month, I've been wrong, but I think it's possible. So again, we see more and more schools leaning into scores a little bit more. So if you have a high school age student, they're probably going to be testing. Um, Jeff Salingo had a very interesting article in New York Magazine called A New Wrinkle in College Admissions, and it was all about how schools after May 1st were going after applicants that they'd admitted but hadn't enrolled. And this meant contacting students and offering them more money after May 1st. So presumably by May 1st, the student had deposited elsewhere. And they heavily featured Syracuse University in this article. There are others doing it, but the idea is that maybe Syracuse gave you $10,000 and now they've offered you 20 to come. And so that is a new thing. Now, for the people that are new to the game, this came from a Department of Justice antitrust suit in 2019 that the National Association of College Admission Counseling had. It was called a certificate. What did they call it? They had, okay, their code, the NACAC, National Association of College Admissions Counselors, which I'm a member. It's high school counselors, it's colleges, it's people like me, it's test prep people, it's kind of the whole gamut. And they had something called the Code of Ethics and Professional Practice. And these came from a good place, but the Department of Justice said that it violated antitrust laws, and what it did when they settled, when NACAC settled with the Department of Justice, um, it changed the rules. So you didn't used to be allowed after May 1st to go after students. You didn't used to be allowed to put in incentives like if you apply early decision, you'll get preferred housing. And there used to be things that just weren't allowed, and now they are. And one of these, so this is where we are. May 1st, if a school's still looking for students, they can reach out to students they've admitted and offer them incentives to come. That's where this is coming from. And so, Department of Justice in 2019 said college choice should be informed and free of coercion. They can, you know, you can now solicit people and you can put incentives in place. So that's where we are. And so Jeff Selinger wrote a long article in New York Magazine about that. And if you have a senior, you might have had your student have schools reach out to them and say, here's another incentive for you to come. So that is something that's happening, and I think we'll see more of it. Um, all right, what else? There is all sorts of talk about headlines about um, putting colleges on the hook for unpaid student loans. Now, this has been something that has been talked about in this field more among people in the field than publicly. But, the student loan game puts the government on the hook, it puts families on the hook, but it really doesn't put the colleges on any kind of accountability for the loans. And I heard one time somebody saying it's kind of like the store at the mall. Like if you send your kid to the mall with your credit card, it's not the store's fault if they spend too much. So it is a little, so I don't know. I've not seen the nuts and bolts of how they're going to put colleges on the line for this, but there's a lot of headlines about it. Um, and the colleges need to ensure that their borrowers repay their debt and that they could be on the hook for this. So stay tuned for that. There will probably be more on that. Um, College enrollment is down. Hold on. Is down from 70% of graduating high school seniors used to attend college. We're currently down to 62% of high school seniors that are graduating attending college. So that's a significant decrease. Um, the other thing I'll say, and going back to the loan repayment, this is the other piece of news. Loan repayment has been on hold for about 5 years. If you have student loans or parent loans, they were on hold due to COVID. Loan repayment was supposed to start this past month in May. Um, the thing about that, there were so many articles about loan repayment and student loans in general, and student loan planning and decision making really starts in high school. And it starts with college admissions planning. What is affordable for your family and what could your family pay for before loans? And figuring out like, okay, so maybe that needs to be the goal, and then we add some loans as needed versus just we're all going to go borrow a lot of money. Student loan foundation starts in high school with college planning. It's just these are hard decisions, and it's not easy. Um, and I will seg into this article in the New York Times. Um, I The New York Times has a lot of college stuff in it, and this article I'm going to share it because hopefully this is sharing. This article what was the date on this? Hold on. Um, uh, Hold on. Now, see, this is why I don't like to share because, okay, the article was titled College is More Affordable Than Many Parents May Think on May 5th by these people, Ezekiel Emanuel, Caitlin Zaloom, and Julian Zelitzer. Now, Caitlin Zaloom wrote a really, I forget the name of her book, something about Indebted. I think her book was called Indebted about college loan. But I put a comment in the comments, and my comment had the most recommendations. And I thought that, I said, what is heartbreaking, and I'm a professional in the college admissions field, is when students in the middle income range that you reference get into highly selective colleges where they don't qualify for aid and the school does not provide merit scholarships, they often have to turn down admission and attend school at a more affordable institution. This can get lost in the affordability conversation. It is not affordable for families in the 200 to $400,000 range to pay north of $90,000 a year. The system is broken, too cryptic, too complex, and too costly. And I had the most recommendations. So I kind of thought that was interesting. It obviously resonated with people. All right. What else did I have for this month? Interesting. University of Texas Austin has a very successful program where they will take, initially they wanted to get a broad base of Texas students. And so they decided years back that they would admit the top 10% of every high school class in Texas. And that brought in a wide range. It's been a very successful program, and it's been copied by, I think South Carolina just put in something like they're taking a certain pool of students. I think Georgia did something similar. But the program has been so successful and has created such a natural socioeconomic and geographic diversity that they have constantly had to chip away. It went from 10% to 9% to 8% to 7% to 6%, and this year they went down to 5%. So you got to be really at the top of your class to get the automatic admit to UT Austin. Um, all right, so there has been a lot of news about cuts everywhere from the most selective schools on down, cuts across the board, budget cuts, faculty cuts. And I just share that to say that, if you have a high school student right now, I don't know how these cuts, if they keep going, won't maybe perhaps shift the campus in some way. It's something to just be aware of as you start to look at colleges. Are they cutting faculty? Are they cutting programs? Are they cutting size? What are they cutting? Because you don't want to have your kid go in and think, I'm going to be this major at this college. And, you know, first semester of their sophomore year, they find out the program's been cut. I don't have any great solutions. I'm just saying that you should have an awareness like, okay, what has this school look like in terms of, their budgeting and their restraints and their budget reductions. Um, the other thing in that range of cuts is sometimes schools just decide to cut the size of their class for different reasons. One could be that they were subscribed the prior year. They ended up with 500 extra freshmen the year before, so now they're cutting the next freshman class by 500. That's certainly one of them. But one of the things could also be just institutional goals that they're making some shifts. So, um, one of the SUNY flagships, Stony Brook, went from a class of 4,100 to 3,800. Now, I don't quite know why they're decreasing their class size by not quite 10%, but if you're really hoping to go to SUNY Stony Brook, that is something to know. In the same vein, Texas Christian has been growing, and they are gone from 11,000 undergraduates to 15,000 undergraduates. So if you're hoping to go to Texas Christian, maybe it's a little easier to get in. We often don't know this. It's a little bit like the stock market till after. Um, but TCU did say they plan to keep growing. So, for what that's worth. The last little bit of news and notes that I have, so certainly, as I mentioned, the Salingo article and the shift in the industry practices around essentially poaching kids with more money after May 1st. There's that, but the waitlist information, I mean, the waitlist activity this year has been really dynamic. And there was a time a couple of years after COVID, I think we're going to see huge waitlist activity, and we didn't. But this year, the activity has been huge from the most selective schools on down, and this started in like mid-April, like big waitlist activity. And just the past week, a colleague in a professional forum posted, "My kid just got a call from Brown waitlist." And so, if Brown is taking kids off the waitlist at the end of May, that's you don't see that every year. And the thing about that is when a school like Brown pulls a kid, um, it puts a spot somewhere else. It creates a domino. Now, if you are at maybe, I don't know, if you are at Clemson and or Auburn or if you get off a wait list at an apples to apples school, kind of a competitor, kind of a peer school, a lot of kids might say, you know what, I'm I'm I have my Auburn stuff, my mind's at Auburn, I'm not gonna make a switch at this point. But when a school like Brown comes calling, kids might make a switch. And so it's been across the board very dynamic waitlist activity. And I think we'll continue to see it throughout the summer. Um, so I can't think. The one thing you need to know about the wait list is if you have need-based aid, it may not be met. They typically are going to be looking for full pay kids in that wait list world. All right, so that is everything I was going to talk about um, in news and notes. So now I want to shift to writing, and I have done writing presentations. I think I did one last year, and but this year, you know, it has really shifted, and I really, with all of my kids that I work with one-on-one, I'm really going back to the drawing board on a couple of different things. And one of them is the use of AI. AI is using AI to write is a missed opportunity. It is a missed opportunity. And if you do not use AI, your essay is more likely to stand out because so many people are going to use AI. And I, you have to remember, admissions people, when they sit down and when they're in their application rating season, it's all they're doing is just reading and reading and reading. So when you are reading all day long, it sticks out like a sore thumb when it isn't just authentic writing. It's like paint by numbers. It's like versus art that you just organically and originally created. So there are schools and you have to look at each school's rules, and some of them say point blank, you may not use AI in your essay. Some say you may use it this way, but not other way. Some say, like, some have no policy on it. If you use it, it will lack depth and it will show. I would suggest putting things in one document. So if a school, and I can't imagine this is going to happen with any frequency, but if a school were to say, we think we have an AI generated essay here, and you have your writing all in one document, and they can trace and like run draft back and see that you wrote that, um, that's important. The other thing I would do is be very careful how many people are commenting on this because they will see, and when I work with kids, I there might be some comment from me on it. There might be a comment from my editor. But then I've had kids like, oh, my aunt's a writer for such and such, and she's got like, all these other people go on it. And it's like, okay, if you have six different people looking at your essay and commenting on it, I don't know. Maybe that's not what you want to do. So there's that. Um, the other thing I would really caution families on is there are the college essay confirms the application. It does not get kids in and it does not keep kids out unless you started sharing about like, a felony or something you did that was horrific that you didn't get caught for. That might keep you out. But your essay does not get you in, your essay does not keep you out. The essay confirms the application. So a lot of people think the essay is like some magical key. Grades and rigor drive college admissions. The essay just is a piece of it. If you have your child submit a piece that looks like Hemingway could have written it, the rest of the application better reflect that. Their English teacher better have written a recommendation that says this kid writes like Hemingway. This kid probably has writing elsewhere in their activities. Maybe they're writing for a literary journal or they want a writing award. So you can't just have like this really nice, great kid that has a B+ average and has taken a nice curriculum and does some sports and volunteer work and then turn in this piece that could have been, won a Pulitzer Prize. It doesn't match and it's going to stand out. So it's really important to let kids turn in their work, and it shouldn't be overly polished. If anything, it should be a little rawer and greener than than you know than you might like, than a parent might think. So think about their artwork as children that would never have been in a museum or won an award really for anything. Or I'm going to show you something in a minute. Or, but the artwork told their story and they brought home their little artwork in first grade. You're like, oh my God, this is just wonderful. It's not award-winning art, but it tells their story. And I am going to show you what I'm talking about. So let's see if this comes across. So I saved this series of different things my kids have done. And I think my son was maybe about 6 or 7 when he drew this picture. And you might be like, yeah, this is nothing. I mean, it's not like a great piece of art, but it really tells the story. And what the story you can see, like he's on in his mind, a very, very steep trail. His skis were green at the time. He wore a blue coat. There he is. There he is. But you're like, you didn't know what's that? You had to know that his dad had orange skis. We're like, there he is, and dad's behind him. And my point is, no one's going to give that an award, but it told his story. He was steep, it was fast, and dad was behind him. You have to let your kids tell their story. Cannot be overly polished, unless that's who they are. So, do not use AI because it's a missed opportunity. And when you're in 11th grade and kids are starting their writing, in the next month or so. They just want to get it done. And the idea, the temptation, if I was 17, I'd be tempted too. But telling their story is going to get them so much further. So, in that vein, um, here's a couple things. I have some do's and don'ts. Do use the application acreage wisely. Share something new. Your kid's a championship tennis player, that's going to come across already. They will know that the kid's a championship tennis player. Kid is a deeply committed musician, that's going to show up. Where that might not show up is if they're doing all their music freelance on their own and nothing really at school, and they're playing, all sorts of gigs all over the place on the weekend. Maybe you do write about it then. But use the application acreage wisely. Share something that is not already in your file somewhere. It is not an opportunity to regurgitate your resume. It is not, well, I won't go into the knots because I have some don'ts too. The second piece of do's, I have three. I have three do's, three don'ts, and then three things to know. So, um, the do's are use the application acreage wisely, write from the heart. If you are really telling your story from the heart, it is going to resonate. It is going to work. This is not a formal piece of writing. Have fun. This is not a 5-paragraph essay proving a point about World War II. This is your opportunity to share who's coming to their campus. Have fun. Enjoy sharing about yourself. Those are the three do's. Don't. Three don'ts. You do not need to cure cancer or solve world peace. They know you're in high school. They know you're essentially a kid. And I know these kids are big in on the cusp of adulthood, but like they are still most of them minors. They are kids. And you do not need to cure cancer or solve world peace to make this effective. You do not need to impress them. You do not need to impress them or show off. Many good essays have some vulnerability that really can work very well. You do not need to regurgitate your academics, your extracurricular resume. I had a kid say, I've written a piece on service. And I'm like, why? And he was like, because that's what they want to hear. And I was like, how do you know they want to hear that? I've heard people say over and over again, what do we want to hear? We want to hear what you want to tell us. So, um, three things to know. Some colleges are running the writing through AI detectors. Now, this is a bit of a problem because I heard a college say, we felt like we were getting a lot of AI stuff. We weren't sure. So we went back 5 years. There was this one essay we all loved, and we went back 5 years ago when AI didn't exist. And we ran this piece through the AI detector and it got flagged. So they were like, now what do we do? So you need to be aware that they could potentially run your piece through an AI detector. And that is where having your work on a document where you've done all the typing and it didn't just get like cut and paste in is important. Um, the essay, and I said this already, the essay confirms the application. It does not keep you in or out. Um, the essay is one segment of many. And as I already said earlier, the grades and rigor really start to sift out, okay, are you going to be considered or not? The essay is just one more piece. So the essay needs to fit the rest of the application because your guidance counselor is writing on your behalf, two teachers are writing on your behalf, you're listing activities. the essay needs to fit in with that. And it's got to appear to be something that you could have done based on your academic profile. Um, so at the end of the day, the essay should be transformational. The essay, when you're done and it's really telling your story, you should really feel like, you know what, this is really telling my story and I feel good sending this. And if I get in, great. And if I don't, great. That's okay. I I didn't I've sent them. I really I'm content and satisfied with what I'm sending them. This is my piece. And when we get to that moment, we know it's like, okay, we're good. We can send this out. So that is what I have to say about writing for the class of 2026 is do not miss this opportunity to really kind of show, you know, here we are. I don't know if I'm showing this right or not, Um, this certainly would not get anybody into art school, but it does tell the story. So let your kids tell their story and don't be afraid if it's a little bit of a raw or greener piece that isn't overly polished, because those pieces will show up as like, okay, this is written by a 17-year-old kid. All right, so I will be back in July, and in July, I'm going to talk about going abroad. There's a lot to think about going abroad, and there's more and more schools that are using abroad first semester, first semester or first year as an enrollment tool. So I thought that would be appropriate, not appropriate, but timely to talk about because you see it more and more. So talking about it as a freshman enrollment tool, but also how to go abroad while you're at a school, once you enroll. So as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and thank you for watching.